Hey you guys, it's Britt. Tonight we're here to talk about the Menendez brothers. This is a video that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and I think I have all of my thoughts in a row, and yeah, hopefully we can have a conversation. So if you're interested, please keep watching. All right, you guys, so I'm not going to be doing a deep dive into the case history because that is well documented all over the place, but I will be briefly discussing childhood SA, victims of assault. So I understand that those are very heavy in nature. If you need to skip this video, please do so, but we're going to start at the top. The Menendez brothers were 21 and 18 when they unalived their parents, Jose and Kitty. When this initially happened, they were painted as two spoiled brats that wanted access to money, so they unalived their parents. The truth of what actually happened to these boys is so absolutely heartbreaking. These boys were being essayed by their own father. He was doing this in their own home, and the mother was not doing anything to protect her sons from the abuse. These boys would tell other family members, and other family members were well aware of what Jose was doing to them. And at the time that this crime took place, if it didn't happen the way that it did, then these boys would not have lived through it. This unfortunately was carried out because if they did not continue to keep this abuse a secret, then they would not have been here living today. It came down to that gut-wrenching of a situation and that serious of a situation where these boys that were, one of them was hardly an adult, felt like they had to do this to escape with their lives after being victims of abuse at the hands of their own father, and knowing that their mother knew what was happening and did nothing to protect them. Before we get into them going to prison and everything, I want to talk about the fact that some of the news headlines and the skits specifically that Saturday Night Live was doing back when this was all unfolding, it is such an embarrassment as a society that these things were allowed to happen. Saying things like the abuse excuse when talking about these boys, making a mockery of them on Saturday Night Live and turning it into an entertainment bit, a skit, if you will, claiming that boys couldn't be victims, questioning if these boys were gay because of the abuse that their father put them through. These were all things that were in the headlines, they were in the tabloids, they were on shows, making a mockery of both of them. There was something else being said back during that period of time as well, where there was this conversation of Jose Menendez, because he was this big, wealthy, popular businessman that was respected and had all of the materialistic things in the world, where people denied the fact that he could also be a monster to his own children because he was wealthy and successful and a businessman. The frame of thinking back when this happened versus the frame of the way that people are thinking now, I am so glad it's a night and day difference, because there were so many dangerous messages and dangerous ways of wording things and bullying, let's be real, bullying these victims that would not be happening today. And the last thought that I had is, let's talk about if it was the Menendez sisters. Do you think that those girls would have been made into such a mockery? Do you think that those girls would have been questioned well, are you gay now because of what you went through? It would have been a completely different conversation if they were girls. And that is my opinion, my conspiracy, and I've heard it from other people as well. It would have been different if it was the Menendez sisters. Moving on to the fact that they have spent over 35 years now in prison for the crime that they committed. I posted a poll over on my community page a couple of weeks ago when I first had the idea to do this video, and I gave a few different options. Should they have never gone to prison? Should they get out because they've served their time? Should they be in there for the rest of their lives? And I had people vote on it. I think that most of us that have a healthy, level-headed way of looking at these things realize that yes, they should have gone to prison, because you can't just unalive someone and not be punished for it. However, these men have spent 35 years in prison. They have literally almost been in prison for 35 years. Think about 35 years. Taking 35 years of your life and throwing you into a cell where you've gotten no help for your trauma. You might have gotten some counseling or something. You have been mocked and ridiculed and made into the punchline of jokes, all while people still refuse to believe that you were victims of your father and you had a mother that was complacent in this. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the Menendez brothers were vocalizing the abuse to family members, and family members knew that this was happening. And one of the pieces of evidence that could help get them out current day is this letter. I will link this down below, but I want to go over kind of what's happening current day and why everyone is saying that they could be out by the end of the year, if not sooner. Lyle and Eric Menendez have been behind bars in California for more than 3 decades for the 1989 killing of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. They were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in the notorious case that captured the nation's attention. Now, the brothers are hoping that new evidence will reopen their case and set them free. The Menendez brothers admit that they killed their parents. Instead, the focus of the case has long been on why they did it. They insist they killed out of fear in self-defense after a lifetime of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse suffered at the hands of their parents. One of their lawyers, Chris Gardner, tells 48 Hours that new evidence corroborates those long-standing claims and lessens their culpability. Gardner argues that Lyle and Eric should have been convicted of manslaughter instead of first-degree murder. And if they had been, they would have received a much shorter sentence and been out of prison long ago. The new evidence includes a letter that Gardner says was written by Eric to his cousin in December of 1988, about 8 months before the crime. The letter reads in part, "I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I'm afraid. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle." Andy did testify at the brothers' trials. He said that Eric Menendez, at age 13, years before the killings, told him that his father was touching him inappropriately. Prosecutors at trial suggested that he was lying. The brothers were tried twice. Their first trial ended in a mistrial when 2 juries, one for each brother, couldn't reach a unanimous decision as to whether Lyle and Eric Menendez were guilty of manslaughter or murder. When they were tried a second time, prosecutors attacked the abuse allegations more aggressively. They referred to the allegations as the abuse excuse. That trial resulted in the brothers' convictions to first-degree murder. That's what I was talking about. Like, what kind of world were we living in where we're saying the abuse excuse when it was well documented? People knew about it. Gardner says that this letter is proof that the allegations were not made up. He says the letter was never presented at either trial, and it was discovered in storage within the last few years by Andy's mother. He died in 2003. Andy did. The letter isn't the only piece of evidence that has surfaced. Roy Rossello, a former member of the Puerto Rican band Menudo, has come forward claiming that he was also essayed by Jose in the early 80s when he was a minor and a member of the band. At the time, Jose was working as an executive at RCA Records, and RCA signed Menudo to a recording contract. He's now 54 years old. He says in a sworn affidavit filed in 2023 that he went to Jose Menendez's home in the fall of 1983 or 84. 14 and 15 at the time. He says he drank a glass of wine and then had no control over his body. He says Jose Menendez took him to a room and R-ed him. Rosello also states in the affidavit that he was essayed by Jose on 2 other occasions, right before and right after a performance at Radio City Music Hall. Lyle said, "When I first heard about it, I cried. For me, it was very meaningful just to have things come out that caused people to really realize, okay, at least this part of what it's about is true." They were abused their whole life, and this is a manslaughter case, not a case. It's just that simple, Garner said. "My hope in the case is that the judge will realize that this new evidence is indeed credible and persuasive, and he'll vacate the convictions." And the next hearing is set for November 26th. So they could actually get out late November. This case has so many sad parts to it. The fact that they have been in prison for almost 35 years is simply inexcusable. There is no way, in my mind, that we should be okay living in a world where you have Gypsy Rose Blanchard running amok, going on podcasts, out here being treated like a celebrity, while the Menendez brothers are still sitting in prison. And you still have people mocking them because they were literally boys that were victims. If you're somebody who has or does mock boys for being victims, have the day you deserve. I will link a couple of deep dives or documentary style videos down below in case y'all want to know more about kind of the crime and what happened in court back when all of this was unfolding. It's a very upsetting story, but that's how I feel. I hope that they get released, and I hope that they know that they are supported, and they have a lot of people that are willing to have this conversation of what happened with them was wrong. Yes, they should have done their time, but what happened was wrong for many different reasons. I think that's enough for today. I've been reading a lot about this case, and it's very heavy. It's very heavy stuff. But we'll just have to wait and see. So either way, for now, if you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.